The phrase, "Let us make man in our image," is found in Genesis 1:26, a significant Bible verse. It precedes the creation of the world in 6 days, where God creates the universe, separating light from darkness and filling it with life. The use of the plural verb, "let us make," suggests complexity within divine nature, opening doors to discussions about plurality in God. The term can also be interpreted as a divine council reflecting communion within God. Scholars argue that this moment is a reflection of God's internal dialogue, focusing on the creation of humanity, distinguishing man from the rest of creation. The text explores the concept of creation in Christianity, focusing on the idea that man is created in the image of a God who deliberated with himself. This suggests that communion, collectivity, and relationship are intrinsically linked to human existence. The use of the plural in "let us make" invites humanity to explore the complexity of the relationship between God and man, pointing to the profound spiritual and ontological connection between the Creator and his creation. The text also discusses the Trinity doctrine, which affirms that God is one in essence, but composed of 3 distinct persons: the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. This doctrine sees the creation of man in God's image as a participation in intrinitarian relationships. Being created in God's image means being called to participate in this communion, not only with God, but also with one's neighbor. This view challenges individualism and promotes a vision of humanity based on interdependence and mutual love within the Christian tradition. In Colossians 1:15, Jesus Christ is seen as the perfect image of God, the firstborn over all creation. This implies that in the creation of man, God already had in mind the incarnation of Christ, who would become the supreme model of humanity. The Holy Spirit, the third person of the Trinity, plays a crucial role in the creation and restoration of God's image in man. The creation of man is a Trinitarian act involving the will of the Father, the image of the Son, and the power of the Spirit. This understanding underscores the importance of human relationships, reflecting the unity and love present in God's nature itself. The terms image and likeness in Genesis 1:126 have been the subject of extensive theological analysis over the centuries. Image refers to a representation or replica of something, while likeness suggests a deeper affinity between God and man. Man is not just an external reflection of God, but also shares in some way divine qualities such as rationality, morality, and the capacity to love. In conclusion, the text highlights the importance of human relationships reflecting God's character in their actions throughout history. Christian theologians and philosophers have debated whether image and likeness represent different aspects of humanity or are synonymous terms. St. Augustine argued that image refers to the essential structure of the human being, while likeness pertains to moral perfection that can be developed over a lifetime. Thomas Aquinas saw the terms as synonyms, emphasizing that the creation of man in God's image is a profound mystery that cannot be fully comprehended. The distinction between image and likeness has ethical and practical implications, as it implies that all possess inestimable value and should be treated with respect and dignity. This forms the basis for Christian ethics, which insists on the sacredness of human life and the necessity of justice and love in all human interactions. Man's creation in God's image is not just a theological affirmation, but a call to live in a way that honors this divine identity. One central aspect of man's creation in God's image is his spiritual nature, which is endowed with an immortal soul, reflecting God's spiritual nature. This soul includes the capacity to reason, choose, and love, which differentiates humans from animals and uniquely connects them to the Creator. Human spirituality is a direct reflection of the relationship within the Trinity and is linked to the ability to transcend the material world and seek truth, beauty, and goodness. Being created in God's image is both a blessing and a challenge, as it requires man to live up to his divine vocation. Man's creation in the image of God is characterized by the presence of free will and rationality, which enable humans to make decisions, make moral choices, and reason about the world around them. These faculties are direct reflections of divine nature, as described in the Scriptures. Human rationality allows humans to understand the laws of the universe, reflect on the purpose of life, and seek the truth. It also enables communication, the development of science, philosophy, and the search for answers to deep questions of existence. Human will, on the other hand, is the capacity to make free and responsible choices, reflecting divine sovereignty. This freedom comes with great responsibility, as humans are called to live according to God's goodness and justice. Human morality and conscience are central elements in the discussion of what it means to be created in God's image. Humans have an innate ability to discern between good and evil, right and wrong, reflecting the character of a just and holy God. In Christian thought, conscience is seen as a reflection of God's law written on the human heart, suggesting that all human beings possess an innate sense of morality. This moral aspect of God's image implies responsibility by creating us with the capacity to discern good from evil. The Bible encourages humans to practice justice, love, mercy, and walk humbly with God. However, the biblical account of Adam and Eve's disobedience in Genesis 3 shows how this moral image was corrupted by sin. Although the moral capacity remains a vestige of the divine image, the redemption offered through Christ is seen as a means to restore this moral image, allowing humans to live once again in accordance with God's will. Human morality and conscience are not just mechanisms of social control, but expressions of God's image in man. They reflect divine holiness and justice, reminding us of our responsibility to live according to these standards. The pursuit of morality and heeding of conscience are ways of honoring God and manifesting His image in our daily lives. The creation of man, as described in Genesis, involves both the formation of the body from the dust of the earth and the infusion of the divine soul. The human body is a masterpiece of design full of complexity and beauty, with each system functioning in a coordinated manner, allowing humans to live, move, and think. This internal harmony is a reflection of God's order and wisdom. The human ability to use the body to express emotions, perform creative work, and worship God demonstrates that the body is an integral part of the divine image. Christian theology emphasizes that the image of God does not refer to a physical resemblance to the Creator, but rather to the human capacity to reflect God's character through actions, thoughts, and relationships. The human body is seen as a temple of the Holy Spirit, elevating its dignity and suggesting that it is a sacred part of creation destined to glorify God. The incarnation of Christ further emphasizes the body's importance in Christian theology. The promise of the resurrection of the dead points to the complete redemption of the human being both in soul and body. The body is not something to be despised or neglected, but an essential part of our identity as bearers of God's image, both in the present and in eternity. The role of the divine representative that man exercises over creation is deeply rooted in the idea of the image, as it represents God's authority in a distant territory. However, this dominion should not be understood as tyranny, but as responsible stewardship, reflecting God's just and loving character in the administration of creation. The fall in Genesis 3 highlights the consequences of sin on the image of God in man, which was created in perfect harmony with the Creator. Sin brought about a rupture in the relationship between God and man, leading to a distortion of the image of God in each person. The sinful condition that affects all aspects of human life, from thought to behavior, is the root of all evil and suffering in the world. Christian doctrine emphasizes that humans retain a vestige of their original dignity and the capacity to seek good, which makes redemption possible. The coming of Christ is seen as the supreme act of restoration, where the image of God in man can be renewed and restored to its original glory through faith and sanctification. The fall is not the end of the story, but the beginning of God's redemptive plan for humanity. Through Christ, the image of God in man is restored, allowing man to live in communion with God and reflect His glory in a renewed way. This process of restoration is ongoing, culminating in the promise of a new creation where the image of God will be fully restored and reflected in all its perfection. The path to the restoration of God's image involves imitating His character actions and sacrificial love. The Christian life is a journey of conformity to Christ, where believers are called to put on the new self, created to be like God, in true righteousness and holiness. Redemption is not only individual but also collective, as the Church is called to reflect God's image in the world. This means living in communion, practicing justice, and proclaiming the gospel. The restoration of God's image is not just a personal matter, but involves the renewal of all creation, where Christ is the firstborn of a new humanity. The immortality of the soul is a fundamental aspect of the belief that man was created in the image of God. The soul is eternal, reflecting God's own eternity, and the choices made in this life have eternal consequences. The image of God in man includes the responsibility to live in a way that honors this eternity, seeking justice, holiness, and love that reflect God's character. The concept of imago Dei, or the image of God in man, has been a subject of intense debate and reflection throughout Christian theology. Early Christian theologians like St. Augustine and Thomas Aquinas focused on rationality and will as central aspects of Imago Dei. Later, Martin Luther and John Calvin introduced new perspectives on Imago Dei, particularly in the context of the doctrine of original sin. In the modern period, the theology of Imago Dei has come to incorporate social and ethical issues, especially concerning human rights and human dignity. Theologians like Dietrich Bonhoeffer and Carl B. related Imago Dei to the responsibility to act justly and compassionately in the world, seeing each human being as a bearer of this image and worthy of respect and protection. This view has been fundamental in the struggle for civil rights and the defense of social justice. The creation of man in the image of God emphasizes not only individuality, but also community and relationships reflecting God's very nature as a Trinity. God exists eternally in three persons: Father, Son, and Holy Spirit in perfect communion and love. This divine communion serves as a model for human relationships, suggesting that the image of God in man is more fully realized in community. Life in community is an essential part of being created in God's image, where relationships are not optional but fundamental to the full expression of this image. Sacrificial love, forgiveness, compassion, and justice are practical manifestations of God's image in the world through relationships. The concept of Imago Dei has profound implications for contemporary ethical issues, particularly regarding human dignity, human rights, and social justice. If every person is created in the image of God, every human life has intrinsic and inalienable value, regardless of social status, race, gender, or other characteristics. This truth forms the basis for defending human rights and fighting against injustice and oppression in all its forms. Imago Dei, or divine image, is a concept that emphasizes the responsibility of humans to care for the environment and the stewardship entrusted to humanity. This concept challenges contemporary issues of identity and technology, such as artificial intelligence and biotechnology. The image of God in humans provides a solid foundation for navigating these issues, affirming that the dignity and value of human beings are non-negotiable and must be protected. The Christian doctrine of Imago Dei points to the future, where God's image in man will be completely restored and perfected. This glorious future is the final hope of the Christian faith, where humanity will achieve the purpose for which it was created. This vision points to a state of perfect communion with God, where sin, death, and suffering will be eliminated, and humanity will live in perfect harmony with God and all creation. Theology of resurrection is central to this future hope, as believers' bodies will be resurrected and transformed to be like Christ's glorified body. This restored image will allow for a full and complete existence in every aspect of human life.